All right, let's talk about how to repair edge damage on a beat up blade. This is not a failed green screen attempt, by the way. It's just a easy to clean surface that I don't care about. So this you may have seen in another video, a demonstration of parries, edge versus edge, and edge on flat, etc. There's quite a bit of damage here. So what do you do about that? Well, as usual, there is a laborious, really thorough way of doing it, and there is a quicker and easier way. Ideally, you would reprofile the entire blade. Because here's the deal, you need to remove enough material until you get to the end of that nick. You need to remove all of that. And if you just do it selectively on the area that's damaged, it's gonna dip in. You're gonna create a low point. And if you like to sharpen blades with a flat stone, that would cause problems, because if you go over it like this, it's not going to touch the stone. So if you want to redo the entire edge to make everything even, you would just reduce the width of the blade a little bit and then just shape everything more or less the way it was otherwise. So two ways to do that. Either you can grind off the edge entirely, just do it flat until you reach the end of the nick, or you can just basically continue sharpening at the same angle. Now, if you keep doing that, if you keep sharpening it at the angle that you already have and just keep going and keep going, you're going to remove more and more material off the edge, because you're basically over sharpening it and just removing the edge eventually. Then you can keep everything even. If you grind it off flat first, then you have to re-establish that angle. So with a belt sander, that's pretty quick and easy. Well, I shouldn't say easy, it's quick, but you can mess up a lot. With any power tool, if you don't have the control you need. You can also do this with any other abrasive, really. So you can do it with a stone, you can do it with a file, and that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm not actually going to use this stone. I mean, I am going to use it, but just as something to rest this on. So I'm going to use a file because it's cheaper and easier to get. Everyone can use a file, even in an apartment. So we're going to go with that because it's quicker than the stone. Depends on the grit of the stone, of course. And I'm going to do it basically the lazy way. I'm not going to reprofile the entire thing. I am going to just work on those damaged areas. Now, this will create low spots, this will dip in. I'm not really going to be too worried about that, because if I want to sharpen it properly afterwards, I can always use something that's not flat. If you use a half round file like this, then that curved surface can get into those areas and you can sharpen it anyway. Or if you use a rounded surface on a belt grinder or round stone, etc., etc. Or on second thought, if you're smart, you just ditch the raised platform and just put it on the box to begin with and do it this way. All right, as you can see, the nicks are gone. Took me about half an hour with the file, and I'm switching over to a finer one to do a bit of touch-up and also resharpen it. I went at a steeper angle than the original just to speed up the process of removing the nicks, and now I have to re-establish that angle for the correct sharpness. I might make it a little steeper than the original because this is a very sharp edge, the original one, but it's not as durable as it could be. So just gonna go over it with the finer one and just touch it up a little bit and remove the the coarse file marks, smooth it out. Also helps that this file is newer and sharper than the other one, for sure. So you can eyeball the difference if you look at the width of the bevel here. So the original bevel here is wider than this one currently is, which means that it tapers more. So it produces a finer edge. This one here is a little narrower, and so it's a steeper angle, which means that it's not going to cut quite as well, but it's also less likely to be damaged compared to an edge that's more acute. Okay, so after all that filing, there's a good chance that there's some scratches on the blade. You know, sometimes you mess up the angle a little bit or slip or whatever, and then you might cause some scratching there. So what I like to do is use 320 grit sandpaper and just go over it and just polish the entire blade. That usually 320 tends to produce quite a nice satin polish, and I think that's about the same as this blade originally had. And by the way, you can also use sandpaper to sharpen the blade. You know, if you put it on a flat block, hopefully a little more elegantly than I'm doing right now. But if you glue sandpaper onto a flat surface, then you can absolutely use that as a stone. You know. All right, so here's where we're at. I'll try to get a before and after picture, even though it's going to be a little difficult because I don't know exactly how I had it lying here in the first place. Either way, you should be able to see the difference. I only did one side. If you get really close, you can still just about see some signs. So ideally I would continue with this some more, but you know what? Sometimes good enough is just that. Good enough. Is it really good enough? Let's see. Well, it's not amazingly sharp, so I could definitely spend some more time on it, but you know what? For now, that's all right. And frankly, I'd rather use the work sharp for it, which is basically a miniature belt sander. That thing saves me so much time. I'd rather go over it with that and have a nice sharp edge. So that's the cheap, quick and easy way, the quick and dirty way, basically. And yeah, you could spend a lot more time on it, you can be more thorough with it, etc. But that's really the gist of it. This is what I would call a field repair. Well, basically a field repair would be minus the sandpaper because it's really not necessary. That's more for aesthetics. So, you know, back in the day, I imagine a soldier would do this quite regularly, either with a file or with a stone. You know, after a battle, just fix the worst nicks. Doesn't have to be pristine because it's going to be messed up again anyway. But more severe damage does need to be repaired because it's a structural weakness. Like for example, if you have a fairly deep nick or gouge in the blade here, and then you receive a strike on the flat, it's more likely to concentrate the force, basically channel it into that crack or nick, and then it may tear open further, and eventually the blade may snap. Whereas minor nicks, like up here, for example, I don't even know if you can see that from there, but this here, that's really minor, not a big deal. The other thing that can happen with a nick in the edge is it may get caught up on clothing, but yeah, really, as far as field repair is concerned, you would just deal with the worst of it, and then when you return from the campaign or you return home after the duel or whatever, then you can spend more time to make it all nice, or even better, bring it to a professional, bring it to a bladesmith and have it reprofiled and refinished to be all nice. So yeah, That's about it. I hope you found it helpful. Thanks for watching and have a good one, folks.